이번 영상에서는 스탠퍼드대 후보 연구소 선임연구원이자 미국 보수 진영에서 영향력 있는 지식인으로 활동하고 있는 역사학자 빅터 데이비스 헨슨이 트럼프 행정부의 관세 정책을 설명합니다. 그는 미국의 관세가 무역 보복이 아니라 지난 수십 년간 이어진 비대칭적인 관세 구조를 정상화하려는 대등 조치라고 강조합니다.
April 3rd, Donald Trump announced it as Liberation Day. By that he meant we were going to be liberated from asymmetrical tariffs of the last 50 years. And it was going to inaugurate a new, what he called, golden age of trade parity. And yet the world seemed to erupt in anger. It was very strange, which brings up another question. Are our tariffs really tariffs? That is, were they preemptive? Were they punitive? No, they're almost leveled on autopilot. Whatever a particular country tariffs us, whatever we reciprocate and just mirror image them. In other words, it's their choice, not ours. April 3rd, Donald Trump announced it as Liberation Day, and by that he meant we were going to be liberated from asymmetrical tariffs of the last 50 years. And it was going to inaugurate a new, what he called, golden age of trade parity, greater investment in the United States, but mostly greater job opportunities and higher paying jobs for Americans. And yet the world seemed to erupt in anger. It was very strange. Even people on the libertarian right and of course the left were very angry. Wall Street Journal pilloried Donald Trump. But here's my question. China has prohibitive tariffs. So does Vietnam. So does Mexico. So does Europe. So do a lot of countries. So does India. But if tariffs are so destructive of their economies, why is China booming? How did India become an economic powerhouse when it has these exorbitant tariffs on American imports? How did Vietnam, of all places, become such a different country, even though it has these prohibitive tariffs? Why isn't Germany, before its energy problems, why wasn't it a wreck? It's got tariffs on almost everything that we send them. How is the EU even functioning with these tariffs? I thought tariffs destroyed an economy, but they seem to like them. And they're angry that they're no longer asymmetrical. Apparently, our people who are tariffing us think tariffs improve their economy. Maybe they're right, I don't know. The second thing is, why would you get angry at the person who is reacting to the asymmetrical tariff and not the people who inaugurated the tariff? Why is Canada mad at us when it's running a $63 billion surplus and it has tariffs on some American products at 250%? Doesn't it seem like the people who started this asymmetrical, if I could use the word trade war, should be the culpable people, not the people who are reluctantly reacting to it? Sort of like Ukraine and Russia. Russia invaded Ukraine. Do we blame Ukraine for defending itself and trying to reciprocate? No, we don't. We don't blame America because it finally woke up and said, whatever they tariff us, we're going to tariff them. Which brings up another question. Are our tariffs really tariffs? That is, were they preemptive? Were they leveled against countries that had no tariffs against us? Were they punitive? No. They're almost leveled on autopilot. Whatever a particular country tariffs us, we reciprocate and just mirror image them. And they go off anytime that country says, you know, it was a mistake. We're sorry. You're an ally. You're a neutral. We're not going to tariff this American product. And we say, fine. Then the autopilot ceases and the automatic tariff ends. In other words, it's their choice, not ours. We're just reacting to what they did, not what we did. A couple of other questions that I've had. We haven't run a trade surplus since 1975, 50 years. So it wasn't suddenly we woke up and said, it's unfair, we want commercial justice. No, we've been watching this happen for 50 years. It's been going on. And no president, or no administration, no Congress in the past has done anything about it. Done anything about what? Leveling tariffs on our products that we don't level on theirs. It was all predicated in the post-war period. We were so affluent, so powerful. Europe, China, Russia was in shambles, that we had to take up the burdens of reviving the economy by taking great trade deficits. 50 years later, we have been deindustrialized. And the countries who did this to us by these unfair and asymmetrical tariffs did not fall apart. They did not self-destruct. They apparently thought it was in their self-interest. And if anybody calibrates the recent GDP growth of India or Taiwan or South Korea or Japan, they seem to have some logic to it. There's a final irony. The people who are warning us most vehemently about this tariff quote the Smoot-Hawley Act of 1930. But remember something. That came after the onset of the Depression, after the stock market crashed in 1929. That law was not passed till 1930. It was not really implemented to 31. And here's the other thing that they were conveniently not reminded of. We were running a surplus. That was a preemptive punitive tariff on our part against other countries. We had a trade surplus, and it was not 10 or 20%. Some of the tariffs were 40 and 50%. And again, it happened after the collapse of the stock market. In conclusion, don't you find it very ironic that Wall Street is blaming the Trump tariffs for heading us into a recession, if not a depression, when the only Great Depression we've ever had was not caused by tariffs, but by Wall Street?
Asymmetrical tariffs, asymmetrical tariffs, asymmetrical tariffs. We were going to be liberated from asymmetrical tariffs of the last 50 years. We were going to be liberated from asymmetrical tariffs of the last 50 years. We were going to be liberated from asymmetrical tariffs of the last 50 years. Golden age of trade parity. Golden age of trade parity. Golden age of trade parity. What he called the golden age of trade parity. What he called the golden age of trade parity. What he called the golden age of trade parity. Leveled on autopilot. Leveled on autopilot. Leveled on autopilot. They're almost leveled on autopilot. They're almost leveled on autopilot. They're almost leveled on autopilot. It's their choice, not ours. It's their choice, not ours. It's their choice, not ours. In other words, it's their choice, not ours. In other words, it's their choice, not ours. In other words, it's their choice, not ours. Preemptive punitive tariffs. Preemptive punitive tariffs. Preemptive punitive tariffs. Were they preemptive? Were they punitive? Were they preemptive? Were they punitive? Were they preemptive? Were they punitive?
시청하신 영상이 도움이 되셨다면 구독, 좋아요, 알림 설정 부탁드립니다. 영상 제작에 큰 힘이 됩니다.